The Psychology of Money. Part 1, Common Biases, the Traps We Fall Into. Episode 3, The Pain of Losing Out. Welcome, English language learners. Get ready to sharpen your listening skills with a short story set in the lively city of Cali. While the sights and sounds of Cali provide a colorful backdrop, our tale today is inspired by the insightful book, The Psychology of Money. We'll follow Leo, a young man navigating life and language in this exciting city, as he experiences a surprising emotional twist. Fresh from a recent lucky win, a small bet takes an unexpected turn. Join us as Leo seeks answers and stumbles upon a fascinating insight into the way our minds truly value money. Get ready to listen and discover. Cali was a city full of surprises. The weather could change quickly, with bright sunshine one minute and heavy rain the next. You could find loud, busy markets, and then, just around the corner, quiet, peaceful parks. For Leo, a young man who was learning English and making his way in this exciting city, his feelings could also change a lot. Last week, life had felt sunny. Leo, usually careful with his money, had bought a lottery ticket on a whim. It was a small investment, a tiny risk, and he hadn't really expected anything to come of it. But luck, in its unpredictable way, had smiled upon him. He had won $100. The news had brought a rush of excitement. $100 felt like a small fortune. He had celebrated in a way that felt both special and responsible. He treated himself to a nice dinner at a restaurant, a place known for its delicious traditional Colombian food. He ordered bandeja paisa, a hearty platter of beans, rice, meat, and avocado, and enjoyed it slowly, savoring each bite. The restaurant had a warm, inviting atmosphere, with soft music playing in the background. It was a perfect way to mark the occasion. The dinner had been a highlight. The delicious food, the pleasant ambience, and the feeling of having a little extra money had combined to create a sense of well-being. But as the days passed, the initial thrill began to fade. The memory of the tasty bandeja paisa remained, but the feeling of having won the money became less intense. The $100, once a special bonus, gradually became integrated into his mental picture of his finances. It was nice to have, but it no longer felt extraordinary. This week, however, the weather inside Leo's mind was much stormier. It started with a friendly bet. A friend, Carlos, had proposed a small wager on a football match. Leo, usually cautious about gambling, had agreed. The bet was for $50. It seemed like a reasonable amount, a bit of fun. He lost. The loss itself wasn't catastrophic. $50 was a manageable sum. But the feeling that followed was surprisingly strong. It wasn't just disappointment. It was a wave of frustration, a sense of having been cheated even though it was a fair bet, a feeling of, well, it felt bad. Much worse than the happiness he had felt from winning twice that amount just a few days earlier. Leo couldn't understand it. He had won $100. He had lost $50. Logically, he was still $50 ahead. But emotionally, he felt much further behind. The small loss felt like a much bigger setback than the larger win had felt like a victory. He found himself dwelling on the lost $50. He replayed the football match in his mind, wondering if he had made a mistake in his prediction. He thought about the things he could have done with that money, a new book, a few weeks' worth of arepas for breakfast, a small contribution to his savings. The loss seemed to magnify itself in his thoughts, growing larger and more significant with each passing hour. Confused and a little disturbed by the intensity of his own reaction, Leo decided to seek out Ms. Reed. Ms. Reed was a kind, older woman who often spent time in the local park. She had a gentle demeanor and a knack for explaining complex ideas in simple, clear language. Leo had spoken with her on several occasions, and he trusted her wisdom. He found her sitting on a bench near her favorite spot in the park, a small patch of flowers she tended with care. The flowers were a burst of color, a small oasis of beauty in the bustling city. Ms. Reed looked up as Leo approached, her face softening into a warm smile. "Hello, Leo," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "You seem a little troubled today. Is everything all right?" Leo sighed, sitting down on the bench beside her. "Hello, Ms. Reed. I'm not sure. I'm confused about something. About how I'm feeling." "Tell me about it," Ms. Reed encouraged, turning her attention fully to him. Leo hesitated for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Well, last week, I won $100 in the lottery. I was happy, of course. I enjoyed it. But this week, I lost $50 on a bet with a friend. And I feel much worse about losing the $50 than I felt good about winning the $100. It doesn't make sense. I still have more money than I started with, but I feel like I've lost more than I gained." Ms. Reed nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "You're experiencing a common human tendency, Leo. It's related to two important concepts in psychology: loss aversion and gain-seeking behavior." "Loss aversion and gain-seeking behavior?" Leo repeated, the words sounding a bit foreign to him. "What are those?" Ms. Reed explained, loss aversion means that people feel the pain of losing something much more than the joy of gaining the same amount. So, losing $50 doesn't just feel like losing $50. For most people, it feels much worse than the happiness of winning $50. It's like the bad feeling is much stronger than the good feeling. She paused, then continued, "Think of it this way. Imagine someone offered you a simple game. A coin toss. If it lands on heads, you win $50. If it lands on tails, you lose $50. Would you play?" Leo considered the question. I don't think so. I probably wouldn't." "And why is that?" Ms. Reed asked gently. "Because I don't want to lose $50, Leo admitted. "The thought of losing it feels unpleasant. Even though I could win the same amount." "That's loss aversion in action," Ms. Reed said. "Even though the odds are equal, the feeling of losing is more powerful, so you might choose to avoid the risk altogether." Leo nodded, beginning to understand. "So, my brain is making me feel worse about losing the $50 than it made me feel good about winning the $100? "Precisely," Ms. Reed confirmed. "It's a fundamental aspect of how our brains process gains and losses. We're wired to be more sensitive to potential threats, and losses are often perceived as threats." He then turned her attention to the small patch of flowers, carefully adjusting a delicate pink blossom. Gain-seeking behavior, on the other hand, describes our tendency to pursue rewards and positive outcomes. When you won the $100, you experienced a surge of pleasure. That pleasure motivated you to enjoy it, to treat yourself. But the intensity of that pleasure can sometimes be short-lived. We adapt to positive changes relatively quickly. "So, I got used to having the extra $100? Leo asked. "Yes," Ms. Reed replied. And that's important because it explains why the $50 loss feels so significant. When you won the $100, it became a new reference point. You were, for a time, in a slightly better financial position. Losing $50 then feels like a larger drop from that improved position than it would have felt if you hadn't won the lottery at all. It's a change from what your brain now considers normal. She picked a small, smooth stone from the path and held it out to Leo. Imagine this stone represents your $100 win. It's a pleasant surprise, and you enjoy it. But after a while, it just becomes another stone. You adjust to having it. Then, she picked up a smaller, slightly rougher stone. Now, this represents your $50 loss. Because you were recently used to having the bigger stone, losing the smaller one feels like losing a larger portion of what you now consider your resources. It's not just the $50 itself, it's the change from a slightly better situation that makes it feel so painful. Leo looked at the two stones, his brow furrowed in concentration. So, it's not just about the amounts, but about the change in my financial situation? Exactly, Ms. Reed said. Our emotions are often influenced by context and comparison. The recent win created a temporary high point, and the loss feels like a greater fall from that point than it would have otherwise. She placed the stones back on the path. This is why people sometimes make seemingly irrational decisions about money. They might hold on to a losing investment for too long, hoping to avoid the pain of realizing the loss, or they might take unnecessary risks after a win, feeling invincible because of the temporary boost to their confidence. Both loss aversion and gain-seeking can lead us astray if we're not aware of their influence. Leo sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the information. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. He understood now why losing the $50 felt so much worse than winning the $100 had felt good. It wasn't just about the numbers, it was about the complex interplay of his emotions, his expectations, and the context of his recent financial experience. I think I understand, he said finally. It's not just about the money. It's about how my brain processes the change. That's a very insightful conclusion, Leo, Ms. Reed said, smiling warmly. And it's a valuable lesson. Learning to recognize these emotional patterns can help you make more informed decisions, not just about money, but about many things in life. Leo stood up, feeling a sense of clarity he hadn't had before. The disappointment of losing the $50 hadn't vanished completely, but it was now tempered with understanding. He knew that his reaction was normal, a product of the way human brains are wired. And he knew that by being aware of these tendencies, he could strive to make more rational choices in the future. Thank you, Ms. Reed, he said sincerely. You've helped me a lot. You're very welcome, Leo, Ms. Reed replied. Remember, it's not about eliminating emotions. It's about understanding them and learning to manage them wisely. As Leo walked away from the park, the sounds of the city seemed a little less overwhelming, a little less confusing. He still felt the sting of the lost bet, but he also felt a newfound sense of control. He had gained something far more valuable than the $50 he had lost. He had gained a deeper understanding of himself. We hope you enjoyed today's story and that it helped you practice your English listening skills. If you did, please give this video a like. And if you want to hear more stories and lessons to improve your English, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.